Hey guys, welcome back to AZ Triumphster. Well, we're taking the Fat Bob out for a quick jaunt to review a couple new items. The first being the Bung King shock extension, which essentially raised the rear of the motorcycle, giving it a little bit more ride height but also adding some rake. The second item being that we took out the fiberglass packing in the S&S mufflers and replaced it with stainless steel packing. So let's start with the shock extension now. I've had this on I think for a couple weeks now, and I've already been doing a decent amount of riding with it. No twisties yet, just to and from work, which is going to include your surface streets and then your little bit of freeway. Actually very similar to this short ride we're doing right now. So let's start with the first thing I noticed before even getting on the bike. Definitely it's taller, so it leans over onto the side stand further, so there's definitely visible results there. Then the getting on the bike, I wouldn't say it's any more difficult to take it off the side stand. You know, you put your weight in the seat and it kind of just naturally starts to lean to the right, and then you just take it off its side stand. But you know, once it's off the side stand, there's a noticeable raise in the height. I'd say about an inch, and so you know, I don't have as good a footing. Not that I had very great footing with this bike to begin with, because it's tall, but you know, not too terribly concerned about that. Just, you know, as I can, you know, if I as they call it, pimp stand it, right? You know, 1 foot up, 1 foot down when I'm stopped. I can adjust my position in the seat when doing so and end up with my left foot flat on the ground. So, and that's not the first time that I've had to manage a motorcycle's weight in that manner. So I'm you know, used to it. Not a big deal. All right, so start going, and you know, first turn out of the neighborhood, it definitely wants to begin that, you know, in the forward motion, and then in negotiating that turn is beginning that motion. It certainly wants to do so what would feel like earlier, you know. So you start your input and the bike just kind of tips over and starts to maneuver through that turn. And that's a pretty low speed turn, you know, neighborhood speeds 25 miles an hour around here. You know, then you get on some surface streets where the posted speed limit's 40 to 45, and you notice that it's a bit more agile in the way of left to right movement, quicker response to your inputs. But I think where I noticed the biggest difference and the most notable difference, and what made me, aside from the aesthetic aspect, happy with the purchase and the install, was when I hit that first left turn on a green light with no opposing traffic, so I could just, you know, decelerate, downshift, and then boom, throw it left, cut the turn. It, you know, comparing to how it was prior, it cut the turn tighter, and it was so effortless. It turned in harder, cut the turn tighter, did it very deliberately, naturally, even to the point that I might say aggressively, and it was awesome. So right there, just your, you know, if you're going to apply that to twisties and, you know, around town and just, you know, fun riding and whatnot, see right here, front end's getting a little light. Oh yeah. Okay, so accelerating on that long sweeping turn, it's very, again, very planted, still maintain that aggressive line, but what I can say, and what I would have expected, and it rings true, you know, you shorten the wheelbase, you're then moving the needle away from stability. It's just kind of naturally, you know, geometry, how it works. And I will say that at the higher speeds, you tend to feel it a little bit. I would say that, so right now, I'm moving with traffic, doing 74, and you know, if I jiggle the bars back and forth, sure, it's like gets all wobbly and stuff, but natural movements, smooth movements are still very planted. What I can say is that once you get up over 100, that's when the front end starts to respond to every little deviation in the road surface. So, you know, you got to think, you know, how often are you going to be riding at that speed in that manner? As far as, you know, I'm concerned, no, you know, not very often. As a matter of testing a new part, and so, but in sharing that information with friends that have Softails, especially one particular with that had a street bob and now has a low letter S, you know, they indicated that even with the factory setup, you know, over 100 miles an hour does get a little sketchy. So, you know, I really don't have a comparison in that matter, because I never really did over 100 on the Fat Bob with the original suspension setup, and paid attention to how unstable or stable it was. All I can say is that with this new setup, going over 100, doing aggressive lane changes at that speed, it seemed that the front end was very twitchy, and reacted to every road deviation. So, all in all, I think it's worth it. For 130 or whatever I paid for it, and a fairly simple installation, absolutely worth it. Plus, I mean, you guys know, I've got this XR114 thing going on, and hiking the rear end up just makes it look even more the part. As far as, you know, like a tracker / urban scrambler sort of thing. So I love it. Great purchase. 5 stars. Okay. Let's talk about these mufflers, huh? So, last video was me taking the mufflers off, having some help from the guys at Dean Speed, disassemble them and remove all the fiberglass packing. I did so because my experience with fiberglass packing has always been that it doesn't last very long, and that companies that use fiberglass packing on their mufflers, produce them that way, don't usually fill up all the space between the perforated tube or the louvered baffle and the muffler body. And therefore, you leave a lot of high notes and metallic, twangy sound, a lot of chaotic noise. You leave that out there. So we replaced the fiberglass packing with stainless steel packing. If you're interested in that, it's the last video I posted. Take a look. We packed the muffler super tight with the stainless steel packing, reassembled everything, put it all back together, and just starting up the bike in that video, not actually having ridden it yet, I was very impressed with the results. And now that I'm riding it, I love it. It was so worth doing it, because it's like, again, all those, the high notes, the twangy sound, all that stuff is gone. It's all thumpy mids and lows. It actually sounds a little bit more sporty now. So, not that I think you guys will be able to hear what I'm referring to over this, microphone and camera, but maybe there's a comparison to my last ride video with the fiberglass packing that might help. I'll see what I can do. But I pretty much knew there was going to be a difference in sound. I pretty much knew it was going to be better, and it definitely is. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I hope you can. If not, I wish you could. It just sounds more refined, but not so much to the point that it's boring, just to the point that it's reasonable. Look, I'll be, one of the first to admit that, Vance and Hines short shots on an Evo Sportster sounds damn near iconic. And there's other muffler options, there's full system options that look cool, and I'm sure they're great for performance, but at the end of the day, they offer too much refinement, and then you're kind of left saying, is this Harley, or what am I riding here? Because, I don't know, Vance and Hines with the way they do the louvered internal baffling, especially on their short shots, it just accentuates that, like I said, near iconic Harley V-twin sound. So, but we all know that the M8 just really isn't there as far as the iconic Harley sound. It's not a twin cam, right? It's far from it. Performance-wise, just leaps and bounds ahead, but it's, when you put something like a Vance and Hines on it, depending upon the system, I would say if you apply the same sort of technology that you're using on those Evo Sportsters of Vance and Hines and put it on this, you're kind of you're reaching for something that you're not going to achieve as far as the sound goes. Again, if you're looking for that iconic sort of Harley V-twin sound. So in a sense, if we accept that, as I certainly have, and I'm going for something a little more sporty sounding, with this steel packing, this stainless steel packing in these S&S Grand National mufflers, I mean, heck yeah, it's there. It sounds fantastic. Dare I say it feels even a little bit smoother. And I know how this works. I mean, if I sit here with maintaining 1 RPM sort of, or if I'm sitting idling, that the sound is fairly docile, or if I open it up, that I get the feedback I'm looking for, and therefore my right hand is the throttle tube is my volume knob, then I'm perfectly okay with that, because then I control how loud it is. So, and no, I'm not running their reducers. Just the muffler straight through. And it sounds great. Yeah, it's a little bit smoother, I think, just as far as like the resonation. I don't get as much through the hands and through the seat. So, in that sense, if you think about like your original stock exhaust stock muffler on a particular motorcycle, and then you know, something that shakes a lot, kind of gives a lot of feedback, and then you go and swap in something that's a lot louder, a lot noisier. You ever notice that you're not as it's not that you're not as likely, it just feels like in the higher RPMs it doesn't feel as smooth or as natural as it did with the factory mufflers and exhaust. So I think that's all feedback you're feeling through your hands, your feet, and your seat. So in a sense, being that that's a little smoothed out, I'm more willing, I guess, again, to, for lack of a better term, to crank it up. Also volume too, because you kind of think about that, you're like, and yeah, I mean, I've got buddies that are like, I don't give a shit, let's just make this thing as absolutely loud as it can be. And that's, I mean, I certainly went through a phase. Yeah, definitely did. I mean, I'm at the point right now where I've had enough, you know, speeding tickets and getting pulled over because, you know, I don't know, a license plate's not visible or the exhaust is too loud or whatever. I'm at the point now where it's like, yeah, I want to be heard. I want a bike that sounds good. And when I decide on the occasion that I want to crank it up, I do it. But, you know, I only want so much attention, I guess. I'd like to avoid the attention that, you know, jams me up, has me on the side of the road, giving my license and registration, just that kind of stuff. I don't need that crap anymore. So, but, you know, to each their own. But, yeah, just absolutely satisfied with the results of both items. All things considered, there's nothing I would do differently or change with those items. I will say this, not that I made any improvements on the rear shock itself, I just added an extension. So essentially, in my opinion, I improved the geometry of the motorcycle, but no, I did not improve the rear shock. And just as a side note, that was a decision I made because, you know, I believe even the cheapest rear shocks for this bike are like around $500-600, which is all right. The thing is, though, I don't really feel like, so if you're gonna throw that kind of money at an upgrade, and you could spend another, you know, $200-300 or so and get something that is better. For example, $500-600 doesn't get you a remote preload adjuster, which I have. You know, factory Fat Bob is a remote preload adjuster. So the point is, you know, being selective of what I want to spend money on, how much I want to spend, not so much, you know, what, but how much. And also being absolutely honest with myself that a $1,000 rear shock is going to go to waste on my motorcycle because I am not out at the track trying to set or break records. It's just not the case. And I've done my fair share of track riding, not on the Fat Bob, although that would be a blast on this thing. And I can say that even that considered, I don't see a reason to spend that kind of money on a rear shock again. Oh my god, it's so much better. Where was I? Yeah, so being realistic with myself, adjusting the geometry, having more fun with it around town, and the occasions that I get to go up north and get in the twisties, I'm happy with it. Now, where I'm headed with this, drop in progressive springs, about 110, 120, 130 bucks, and that's another upgrade. I absolutely think this bike in its current setup could benefit from that upgrade. And again, it's in that, you know, comfort zone as far as something to just throw a little bit of money at. So I'm good with it. I think that's what I'm gonna do next. And hopefully there's enough of a difference that there's something to actually do a video about. If not, that's fine, you know, whatever. Oh my god, it just feels smoother, it feels better. This is fantastic. And then I think from there, if the front suspension goes as I hope, maybe looking at some brake improvements, some upgrades there. Again, I mean, you can look at brake improvements, you know, in two ways. One being performance minded, and again, you're going to go to the track, you're going to look at, you know, setting some killer lap times. But the other one is too, you can't really argue that better brakes wouldn't benefit you on the street. 650-pound motorcycle, yeah, luckily has a dual front disc, dual front caliper, great. Then I think with the better front springs, kind of dialing out some of that brake dive, a little bit more bite, I think would be beneficial. So this is all kind of just stuff kind of kicking around. But, you know, it's starting to cool off. And when I say cool off, we're talking, you know, it averages about 100 degrees a day now, and we're in September. And, you know, that could be a limited time. It could go back up over 100, and it could be in October. So we'll see. But if it, you know, if it maintains to stay nicer out, I would like to try to mess around with the KZ a little bit more. But we'll see. Guys, let's wrap this up. Thanks for coming along with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I know the microphone sucks, fully aware. Not going to change a thing about it. Don't care. But I hope it was good enough that you could hear what I was saying, hear the exhaust. You know, any questions, leave it in the comments. I'll get to you. And just other than that, you know, stay safe out there.